Hi, this is Frid from The Joy of Syntax and English in Color. And today I would like to introduce you to some dangling participle constructions, and I would like to fix them with you. And then I wanted to show you some very successful participle constructions from real literature. As always, I have prepared a PowerPoint. And, hang on a second. Here we go. Dangling participle constructions. I found this one as an example on the internet, but I couldn't find the source, so I can't cite the source. I didn't make this up. Letting out a loud bang that was followed by a pronounced silence, I realized that my car was broken. When you read that, who do you think produced the bang? The speaker? Did the speaker eat too many enchiladas, bean enchiladas? Or who let out a bang? Okay, I think it was the car. And in order for the car to have let out the bang, we need to change the sentence. And before I can show you the fixed sentence, I need to move myself out of the way. Okay, we can fix the sentence in two different ways. We can retain the participle construction and change the main clause, or we can retain the main clause and then transform the participle construction. Here are both versions. Letting out a loud bang that was followed by a pronounced silence, my poor old car finally gave up the ghost. Okay, now we have the car letting out the bang. Or we can focus on myself, and then we can say, we can simply turn the information into an adverbial subclause and say, when I heard a loud bang that was followed by a pronounced silence, I realized that my car was broken. Both ways are totally fine, and it all depends on who you want to be the subject of your main clause. Who is supposed to be the focus? The car or me, the speaker? Okay, so either version is fine, and neither version is preferable to the other one. It totally depends on you, the speaker or writer. Whenever we write, we choose constructions that help us present what we want to present from the perspective that we want to present it in. Nothing is objective. It all depends on what we want to achieve, who our audience is, etc. Okay, here's another example. This one was given in one of the Webster dictionaries. Climbing the mountain, the cabin came into view. When you look up dangling modifiers in one of the Webster dictionaries, I don't remember which one, it might have been the Collegiate, then you will find this example of a dangler. And so we can fix this. So the question, of course, is who's climbing the mountain? It's obviously not the cabin, so we need to hunt for someone. And the main clause does not suggest one. We don't know whether it's a group of people climbing the mountain or a speaker or one person, I mean. So when you want to fix that, you need context, and we don't have context, so we need to make it up. I decided that I was going to climb the mountain. And I retained the participle construction and simply added a subject that can climb. Climbing the mountain, I saw the cabin, or climbing the mountain, I suddenly discovered the cabin. Okay, now these two sentences are grammatically correct. There are no danglers and everything seems hunky-dory. However, I would like you to really look at them. Climbing the mountain is a process that takes longer. And it takes a day or a few hours, and it's a very broad thing. And my feeling is that we wouldn't really say, well, while I was hiking all day, I discovered the cabin. I think we would provide more detail about the situation, the particular situation, the minutes around the discovery. And in order to make my point a little bit better, I came up with a few sentences. Now, my little text is not immortal prose, but I hope it gets the point across. And I think it's better than the first sentence. The mountain was tougher than I had thought. I had been climbing for hours and I was really exhausted. As the path became bumpier, I became grumpier. But suddenly my grumpiness turned into excited joy because, turning a corner, I saw this cute little cabin underneath a beautiful tree and right next to a spring. What a relief. Okay, so you see, turning a corner is more specific. And then, you turn a corner and you see the cabin. Now, this little text gives you enough background and makes the situation come alive. So this is another point. When we fix sentences, just fixing the grammar is often not enough. We need to see whether the sentence itself fits into a context. And the context, and in order to evaluate that, we, of course, need to decide whether, what kind of a text it is, why I'm writing it, who the audience is, what I want to achieve, and what I want my audience to see and visualize. Okay, here's another example. This one is from a newsletter that I got. Introducing my new masterclass on November 1st, you will learn what I did to grow a 6-figure business. Now, introducing my new masterclass on November 1st. So obviously, someone is going to introduce a masterclass on November 1st. And you will learn. Now, who will learn? Not the person introducing the class, right? But the customer, the prospective customer, whom the business guy is addressing. So the audience, the customer, the prospective customer will learn something. And it's not the customer who is introducing the masterclass. So here we really have a dangler on our hands, and it's very confusing, I find. So the questions we need to ask are: who is introducing the masterclass and who will learn something? And now we need to bring this into alignment. Now, in this case, I strongly feel that there is no space for a participle construction. Now, I think we need to say something like this. I have a few options. On November 1st, I will release my new masterclass, or I will introduce my new masterclass. I didn't put that option down, but you can imagine that. In this masterclass, you will learn how to scale your business to 6 figures and beyond. Or in my brand new masterclass, I will teach you what you need to know in order to grow your business to 6 figures. In my masterclass, I will share with you what I did to grow a 6-figure business. I think all my options are good, and I don't know how to combine how to furnish or provide that information by retaining the participle construction. So you see, sometimes these danglers need to be dissolved altogether. Okay, here now is a great example of a participle construction. It's taken from The Great Gatsby, the very well-known, famous novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Blinded by the glare of the headlights and confused by the incessant groaning of the horns, the apparition stood swaying for a moment before he perceived the man in the duster. Now, granted, this is a past participle construction, but those work the same. The apparition, the subject, was blinded by the glare of the headlights, and the apparition was confused by the incessant groaning of the horns. And the apparition was swaying for a moment while it stood. So we see that we have actually a compound adjective phrase as predicate appositive, and it's placed in the initial position. And then we have a participle construction as predicate appositive in final position. And see, it is in final position. We have the subject, we have the verb, the intransitive verb, and we could have an adverb like the apparition stood in the driveway or stood there, but he left it out, Fitzgerald left it out, and then we have the predicate appositive, which shows us what the apparition was doing. It was swaying. And then then we have an adverbial, which is actually an adverbial subclause attached to the whole thing. A very wonderful sentence. I love The Great Gatsby for many reasons, and one of the reasons is that I think it's chock full of interesting sentences. Here's another example of a participle construction, and this one is a present participle construction. That's why I chose it. I wanted to provide a successful example of a present participle construction as well. This one is from a translation. The original is written in German, and the translation is The Art of Hearing Heartbeats by Jan Philipp Sendka. Okay, but this is just a note on the side. The main thing is we have a participle construction that is a predicate appositive, and it is in initial position. So the subject is I, and I was trying to ignore him while I glanced around the tea house. And I can express that by saying, trying to ignore him, I glanced around the tea house. The green bit, the bit that is underlined in green, is an appositive, just in case you wanted to know. So the tea house is further described with the help of this apposition. So this is a long noun phrase, a mere wooden shack with a few tables and chairs standing right on the dry, dusty earth. This has nothing to do with the topic at hand, but it's interesting. So we have this noun phrase. Wooden shack is the head of the noun phrase. Mere is the pre-modifier. With a few tables and chairs standing right on the dry, dusty earth is a prep phrase as post-modifier of shack. And inside of this, we have a noun phrase, and the compound noun phrase, tables and chairs, that's post-modified by a participle construction, which is actually a reduced defining relative clause. Crazy, right? So much is in this sentence. I think that's fantastic. It's not a difficult sentence, but for many people, it's hard to explain all the grammar in it. Okay, let me read it again so that you can savor it. Trying to ignore him, I glanced around the tea house, a mere wooden shack with a few tables and chairs standing right on the dry, dusty earth. Here now is an example of a participle construction as predicate appositive, but it's placed in medial position. This whole thing is a compound sentence. The first main clause is this: the conversation went on in this unsatisfactory way. The second main clause is presently Dr. Nelson said that he must go. And into this second main clause, a predicate appositive has been placed right behind the subject, and it describes what Mr. Nelson was doing while he said that he must go. So Dr. Nelson looked at his watch, and then he said that he must go, or while he was looking at his watch, he said that he must go. So we have this predicate appositive, and it sticks out, and it's in perfect position here. And in this case, it's very good that the writer, Somerset Maugham, chose to put this into medial position. Because the subject of the first main clause in this compound sentence is conversation, is not identical with the subject of the second main clause. It would have been confusing, I think, for the reader to first see the action and then see the subject. So I think it was very helpful to let us see the subject, Dr. Nelson, first, and then to present the predicate appositive, which lets us see him doing something. Okay, here is one final example. This one again from The Great Gatsby, and here we have a very successful predicate appositive in final position, and the predicate appositive consists of a very long participle construction. A sudden emptiness seemed to flow now from the windows and the great doors, endowing with complete isolation the figure of the host who stood on the porch, his hand up in a formal gesture of farewell. Man, this is such a big structure. And you know what is always a very good exercise? To take these great sentences apart and to dissect them into main clauses, and then to look at the main clauses, cover up the original, and to try to reconstruct the original sentence. And that way you will really appreciate the structure of the original, and you will actually flex your writing muscles. So a sudden emptiness seemed to flow now from the windows and the great doors. This sudden emptiness endowed with complete isolation the figure of the host. The figure of the host stood on the porch, and his hand was raised in a formal gesture of farewell. All of these propositions are put together into this participle construction. So we have the participle construction itself, then we have a non-defining relative clause, and then an absolute phrase. One of these days I'm going to make a video just about absolute phrases. They're fantastic creatures. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I like this sentence so much, but I think I have said enough about this. Okay, how these examples, the good examples, are quoted in my grammar book, The Joy of Syntax and the Zen of Grammar Practice. I would love for you to buy the book. You can also book me for one-on-one sessions and for group coaching sessions. Anyway, stay tuned for the next video, and thank you very much for listening. And if you like this video, I would love for you to share it. And if you haven't yet done so, please hit the subscribe button. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.